My name is Kasamba Kokayi. I'm with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. I am at the Alachua County Soil Collection Ceremony with Miss
LaToya Brazil.
LaToya Brazil, who is a descendant of Mr. Letzer Watts, who was one of the lynching victims here in Alachua. So, for my first question, I want to know, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm actually elated today. Yes. Thank you for asking.
Of course. What drew you to the ceremony today?
Well, because of the soil ceremony being in reverence to my great-grandfather, so I actually am very honored, and so I feel like I'm here to represent my family for what happened to my great-grandfather.
Of course, I see. And are you from like Gainesville or Alachua?
I was born in West Palm Beach, but I was raised here in Gainesville. All of my grandfather's family pretty much is from here in Gainesville.
Okay, I see. And I remember earlier you mentioned that your great-grandmother did tell you about these lynchings, but can you explain how that was?
Yes, I was 17 at the time, and so my cousin Nina Brown, she and I were actually at home with my great-grandmother that particular night when my great-grandmother happened to tell us about the story that happened to them. And she mentioned that her and my great-grandfather were actually on their way home from a movie that particular night, and on that night my great-grandfather actually saw the two white men that killed him. He saw them actually ridiculing another young guy, and it was another white guy that they were actually assaulting. And so at that time my grandfather was bold enough to actually speak up, and he said something to them, and so then they left that gentleman alone and they turned their attention to my great-grandfather. And in front of his wife, my grandmother Bernice, they actually shot my great-grandfather, and then my great-grandmother had to play dead. And yes, she had to play dead to make sure that she wasn't killed. And so from there, that's how she was able to survive and tell the story of what happened.
That's actually really crazy. That gives a lot of context. Wow. Okay, hold on. Let me process that. Oh my God.
Right.
That's terrifying.
Right.
So, do you feel that it's important to address like the victims of lynchings like publicly?
I do, because for one, these are my children, and so they don't know the history of family unless it's passed down. I would have never known that my family had suffered, something so horrific had that information not been passed down. So I think it should be known so that we can bring restoration to history that has happened, because there are a lot of people who have actually gone through a lot of great things to make changes on behalf of all of us.
I see, of course. And that is why we preserve oral history.
Yes.
Okay. So do you have any thoughts on what could have driven people to that point, or to this point even?
Well, back then, at the time I was 17, and I used to cry and wonder, do I go to school with any of their grandkids? How do I know that I have not encountered one of their descendants? And what could I do to be different to make a change? And so, a lot of those things have actually crossed my mind throughout the years. And so I tried to raise my children different. And because of that, my older son is now in the Navy.
Okay. All right. Serving. So, how do you feel that truth-telling, the making sure the community knows the truth, how do you feel that, or let me rephrase this, what benefits does that bring to the community as a whole?
I think it brings healing. Because of Dr. Hilliard Nunn, she was able to do the research. That cousin that was there with me that night, she was a student of the University of Florida, and she, during her class at that time, she began to express what happened to Dr. Nunn, and from there, it put a fire in Dr. Nunn to do the research. And so I feel like if the stories are told, then it can bring healing and restoration, which is why we're here today.
Of course, of course. Truth brings healing.
It does.
All right, so, excuse me. So how do you feel post-ceremony?
I actually am elated because today is my great-grandmother's birthday. And so because of that, I feel like so much healing has come on a day where she was born, you know, and so she's not here to know that justice has been, not necessarily justice, but reparation has been restored from a night where she lost a loved one.
Of course, of course. And how would you explain this ceremony to someone else who wasn't here today?
I would say to them that today, Alachua County held a ceremony to bring healing to past communities as well as future communities, to let them know that Alachua County does care, and that today was a ceremony to where many different backgrounds have joined together to show unity for now and for the future.
Of course. And has the ceremony today inspired you to take any other kinds of actions?
We actually were just talking, I was talking to my children about wanting to go now to Alabama after, to go to the actual museum once the jars are transported. So we're going to plan a trip in over the summer so that we can go to the Lynching Museum in Alabama to not only see our the soil for our great-grandfather, but also to see, you know, history for what happened to other people.
I see, I see. Well, that sounds beautiful, and I'll have to give you our contact so we can get those photos after y'all go there. But I really appreciate this interview, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for the interview.
My name is Kasamba Kokayi. I'm with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I'm here with Mr.
Clovis Watson Jr., Sheriff of Alachua County.
Alrighty then. Okay. Okay, so how are you feeling, Mr. Watson?
I'm feeling really good, you know, to see us come together as a community to address the reconciliation of what has happened to African Americans in the past, and to listen at all of the stories and the history and the perspective as to where we are today, and to look at those as myself, the first African American sheriff in the history of Alachua County, and many other firsts who are here today and throughout this county. But I must say that I'm not the first, and many others are not the first because we are the best and the brightest. We are the first because of the sacrifice and the hard work and all that those who went here and came here and tried to affect change decades and centuries before us. We are the first today because of that, and I'm honored to serve and to pay homage to those who came before me and prepare a place for those who are coming after me.
Beautiful. So, how do you feel about what you saw today and what was said today by the families, by the reverends who were here, by the other speakers?
Well, it was very moving hearing about what happened to us during the 1800s and going all the way forward to what happened to us during the era in Alabama, where the segregation, as the speaker was here today. And one of the reasons this is so significant for me, and I'm here today, because African Americans first landed on American soil in 1619 as slaves. And some 200 and some odd years later, in 1857, the Supreme Court would declare that the Negro is not a citizen of this nation, but merely the property subject to the dictates of his owner.
Ridiculous.
And 6 years later, Emancipation Proclamation, we had some freedom. Well, we have Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. I was born in 1958. I went to a segregated school until I was in the 7th grade. So we had much work to do here. And we look at that same Supreme Court that ruled us not human in 1857. Thurgood Marshall in 1967 was set on that very Supreme Court. So I'm honored by that. And when we look at the history of our first African American president in 2008 and subsequently 2012, it would not have been possible without 1972, when Shirley Chisholm had the courage and had the insight to run for office, whether she knew she would get there or not. She knew by getting out and taking that chance, showing that courage, one day there will be a president who looked like me. And that is the courage we have to show today. So it's many things that we miss today. There's many things that we may not have accomplished today. But because of our hard work, courage, commitment, and discipline, some after us will overcome many of those strides. We cannot think just because we had an African American president that the struggle is over. We have many communities that we must address. We have many positions. We have many strategies. We have many policies that we must be consistent in many of our respective communities to show that we must show a level of commitment to make this happen. And being sheriff, which is my responsibility and obligation, is to make sure that it's fair, equal, and clear justice. I am committed to doing that. I don't want no one, and no one will feel any more or less comfortable in the Sheriff Watson administration. I'm committed to this. I'm committed to being the sheriff of all people, all groups, all entities, and that is what I bring to the table and my administration, and I'm so very honored to be sheriff of Alachua County.
I see. How would you explain the ceremony to someone who's never been to a soil collection ceremony before?
I would explain the ceremony and the significance of it, going back to what I stated when we came here as slaves. Some people may say, well, why are we still talking about this? Why are we doing this? We're doing this because of young people who may not understand it. We don't have an awful lot of curriculum within our schools that address these issues. So we have to, as a community, come together to educate the community and to show them that we are partners. We're going to work together, black people, white people, Asians, all Americans, because no one owns America. We all are in this together. So the significance of this is to show the people that we recognize our ugly history. And we're not walking around angry, but we are walking around saying that we will acknowledge it and we will make sure the people who are coming behind us, who may not have the level of understanding and sensitivity that we have, so that they can have a better understanding. And we have a responsibility and an obligation to do that for those who come behind us. And for those who made this possible, we certainly have a responsibility. And when we talk about Alabama and what was stated with the speaker referencing the projects that they're working on, we had a governor that, and I quote, stated, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Those were the words of one of our governors. And today, we see integration. We see a first African-American sheriff. We see a first African-American city manager, governor, and all of these things. But you know what's going to really be powerful in one day in America? When we stop talking about or have to acknowledge the first. It should be commonplace, and then we would have made a difference in America.
I see. For future generations and those of the past.
Absolutely.
So, did the soil ceremony inspire you to take any sort of action today?
It didn't inspire me to take action, but what it did inspire me to do is to continue the actions that I've taken. It inspired me to continue to fight, to continue the effort, to continue to offer that level of humility and fight to bring us together, to get rid of the hate. Even those who hate, I don't hate them. Even those who create divide, I won't be a part of the divide. We cannot acquiesce to the negativity if we want to make a difference in America. We cannot hate those who hate. We cannot hate those who don't have a level of understanding and sensitivity of what we do. We have to bring it together. So sometimes you have to look at those who don't understand and work with them and talk with them consistently and compel them to understand. So often we try to demand respect. We have to command respect, not demand it, because you can never demand it. If you don't command respect, you won't get it.
I see. Have you ever visited the Legacy Museum or the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Alabama? And if you haven't, Would you be going anytime soon?
I haven't visited, but I'm certainly encouraged. And that's something that I want to do. And not just that one, many others throughout our country we have in different states. That's something that I haven't done. And that is one of the things that inspired me today, is to give me a little more courage to go do it. Or I wouldn't say courage, but a little more drive and initiative to find time, if you will, to go do it with the busyness of putting the community together, bringing the community together, making the people understand in Alachua County there is no community without law enforcement, but there is no law enforcement without the community, and we have to do it together. One of my goals is to create a government liaison area so that we will go out into the communities, not just to effect an arrest or doing unrest. We have to go in communities when there's no problem happening at this specific time to establish partnerships and rapport with the community. So when we do have to deal with a difficult issue in the community, they will say, well, that's Tim, not Deputy. That's John, or that's Kim. And when we have that level of rapport and trust, because a lot of times when you see things happen on both sides, law enforcement and the community, it's a lack of trust. It's a lack of perception of what someone may or may not do to each other. If we can build that rapport and have the same deputies going into the communities consistently, week after week, month after month, year after year, I think we will establish a rapport so when someone is acting out of character, or someone does something that appears to be bad, you will have a level of trust and understanding and partnership to say, that's John. I've known him since he was in middle school. Something doesn't seem right. Let me talk to him. That's the kind of rapport that we need to build with all segments of the community. And until that time, we're going to continue to have problems until we do that. I'm committed to doing that, and my team is equally committed.
All right. And for my final question, do you personally feel like truth and reconciliation have been addressed today?
I certainly feel like we are at the beginning stages in Alachua County of addressing this. This is my second one this year. We had one in Newberry, in the area where it was the tree where it was where it happened to the Newberry 6th. I was there for that event. I'm here for this event. I will be at all events because it's important that they see their sheriff not only go to crime scenes. I need to be at community events to show the people that I'm a partner with all segments of the community, and to be there to show that I am a partner of support of this action, because if we ignore what has happened, we're more apt to do something similar.
For sure. All right, well, thank you today, Mr. Clovis Watson Jr. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day.
Honored to be here. Thank you so much, and thanks for interviewing me.
My name is Adolfho. Thank you for doing this interview today.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, are we ready? All right, my name is Adolfho Romero. Today I'm here with the Samuel Proctor program, and today is February 20th, 2021, and I'm here today with
Cassandra Moore.
Cassandra Moore. Thank you very much. And we're here. Why are we here today? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're here to celebrate, unfortunately, the families that have been impacted by lynching here across the country, here specifically in Gainesville, Florida. It's believed that there are 7 documented folks that have been lynched, and this year is a soil ceremony where we get to honor that legacy and that trauma and hopefully bring some closure.
What does it mean to you? What does it mean for you being here today?
It means a lot. I think as a person of color, knowing the history that has shaped our country, the social injustices that have experienced by so many different people, and to be here to be a part of history, really, and honoring people that have been impacted by that. It just kind of gives you a moment to self-reflect and, appreciate how times have evolved. And while it hasn't been pretty at all times, honoring that moment of change and growth.
What do you feel this means for the community? Do you think it's a reconciliation between groups? What does it mean for the community in this event?
Yeah, I think for the community, I hope it brings a sense of closure. I think to honor a part of history, you have to face the truth of what has happened. And so having that ability to recognize the truth in what has happened, bring honor to that, manifest that into the universe in whatever way works best for you.
Do you feel truth-telling is restorative for community or best forgotten?
Oh, I definitely think it's informative for the entire community. I think if you move forward and you don't acknowledge the past, then you're definitely doomed to repeat it. You can only... Is that a thing that people have been doing across?
No, I did it.
We're going to get a whole compilation today of you're doomed to pass.
Right?
You're doomed to repeat it.
That's exactly you nailed the point.
5, I guess, right?
Wow. Okay, before we finish, would you share any comments or anything that you would like to add about the event or to the community in 100 years that are listening from this point on? Like, what would you say to them? Like, what's the next steps?
I hope in 100 years we have grown and evolved where we can all love one another and accept one another and have a time to reflect the pain that has shaped the country, but acknowledge that with that pain is growth. And I hope in 100 years we're in a space where we love and accept everyone and can make everyone feel united.
Is this your, well, before I finish, I was just thinking, is this your first time coming to an event like this, or have you been to other events?
I've been to a few different events. One of my good coworkers, Brittany Coleman, she's been involved with the community's Equal Justice Initiative throughout this process, so I kind of tag team with her a lot.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today, and that will conclude our presentation. My name is Adolfho Romero. Today is February 20, 2021, and I'm here with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and we're here today to commemorate and to do a ceremony for the soil collection. Would you please let us know your name and who you are today?
Sure, gladly. My name's Dan Weisman, and I'm here with my dad today.
Well, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Weissman.
It's Weisman. It was
Weissman.
Adolfho, right?
Adolfho,
cool,
correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Weissman, your first name was again?
Dan, like Daniel.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Okay, perfect. We need to have it just so we can write it down.
It's a little bit. I know we're doing this 2021 style, so.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Like, are we in the? Okay, fantastic. So just to begin, why are we here today? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, so we're here as part of the Equal Justice Initiative's endeavors to help us all learn more about the history of the town that we love and the county that we love. At least that's how I see it.
Fantastic. What does it mean to you?
So I believe that we can't know where we're going unless we know where we are, and that requires that we know where we've come from, right? As a people and as a community. And I think that being here and kind of like opening our eyes to what history has truly been for the state we love and the county we love and the town that we love, I kind of feel like it's a duty that we have as citizens. So I don't know if you see it the same way, but that's kind of how I see it.
I'll be honest with you. Today we've been talking about if you can't remember the past, you're condemned to relive it, and that's one of the themes that it goes back to. The past makes the present, sort of. What we relive, we're going back. But I would like to ask you, do you think this event will bring closure to the relationships, multicultural relationships between the community? Is this enough for the community to move forward and start fresh at
Did you say closure?
Closure.
Yeah. I don't think that that's the purpose. I don't think that that's in the cards today. I think that people have a different view on things. My view is that when it comes to being good citizens, that there is no end state. There's no place where like you get there and you're just like, I'm done. We're all good enough. We're all educated enough. We're all good citizens. We're done. I don't believe that there's ever an end state to being educated and to being caring, compassionate, or being good members of our community.
I love the way that you put it, education, the way that you have to educate yourself and understand what's going on in order for you to understand the circumstances and move forward.
I like to go deep on things, right? I didn't fall too far from the tree in that regard.
Exactly. No, that's fantastic.
Before coming out here today, I actually went and did a little bit of historical research on my own.
Please tell us.
And I found the testimony from the congressional hearings.
Please, Paul,
yes, I will. Okay,
fantastic.
So check it out. All of the names here that we're going to be recognizing today, right? sorry. Right, all the names of the people that we're going to be recognizing and honoring today, this came from history, and the way that we find out about this stuff is by investigating original sources, right?
Sir.
And so this is the testimony from the congressional investigation into the lynchings that happened in this area during Reconstruction. And you see, when one of our local officials was interviewed, they asked him about all the people who had been terrorized by lynching, and this was testimony they took from him in 1871, right? And he told the congressional investigators about who these men were. He told them what their names were. He told them how it happened. He told them what happened in our community, right? And by documenting history and by doing thorough investigations, right, and by identifying the truth and by memorializing it, that's how we get the information for us to kind of build on, towards, living better together, I think. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of why I think we're here today.
Beautiful answer. Thank you, sir. Just before we finish, is there any comment that you would like to leave the community with, or any thoughts or forwards after? Like, what do you hope for the community to gain out of this?
Well, I think that us all doing things like this together, learning about history, making a friend when you can, right? I think that us doing all this together is what is going to get us to, a more just, more stable future for all of us and for our children and, for his children and for his children's grandchildren and for the rest of us. That's kind of how I see it.
Well, thank you very much, and that will conclude our interview for today.
All right, Adolfo.
My name is Adolfo Romero, and today is February 20th, 2021. And today here I'm with Roberto Munoz. Roberto Munoz, thank you for joining us today. I'm here with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and we're here to invoke and talk about the soil collection and the projects that have been going on within the ceremony, and what does that mean within the county of Alachua. Before we begin, what drew you to the ceremony today, Roberto?
I actually was walking around and I saw Deborah, who I've worked with in the past, and I wanted to join her and help out in any way I could.
Can you tell me, who is Deborah?
Deborah Hendricks is from the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. She's one of their digital bibliographers.
Fantastic, Roberto. Do you think it's important to publicly address the victims of the lynchings in today's program?
It is very important so that we don't forget about the past and we don't fall victim of it in the future again.
Do you have any idea or thoughts of how people in your community could do this? Like, what made them do this? Like,
why would they lynch people? This is what you're asking? Or why would they remember it?
Why would they remember it?
Oh, yeah. I think it's very important, as I said, because it sounds very cliche, but a community that doesn't remember its history is condemned to repeat it. So if you don't do this type of events, people forget that horrible things happened in the past. And with today's political climate, it's really bad that racism became like another thing going again since the past 4 years in the past administration. So it's really dangerous that we're going down that road. So I think it's really important for us to remember the past so that we don't repeat it.
Fantastic. Yeah, that kind of brings me around to the point. Like, do you think this ceremony is an effective way to raise awareness about the event?
It is one of the best ways to raise awareness. I think people see these activities, they join them, they hear about the stories, the oral histories and the stories of people that went through those horrible events, and it raises awareness for people not to repeat these events or not to let people think racism is okay and just look the other way. It raises awareness so that we're aware of what is going on in this world.
Roberto, we have, in the context that we're living today, and even in the past, we're still facing this racism that goes around and prevails in today's time. Mm-hmm. Do you think this event will somehow shape that, or is this like one of the starting points to create change within society?
I believe that these type of events, it's like a brick in the wall to construct a wall of change and of better things. So it's just a part of the whole solution. It's not the solution in itself, but it will help for future generations, for sure.
Do you have an idea of what happened in this event? Do you understand the history about the event, and can you explain to us a little bit about what happened?
I've studied a little bit about the history of racism in Gainesville and in Florida, and about the lynchings, which were some of them were inspired by the KKK, the terrorist organization of white supremacists. And yes, we're gonna hear in a minute about it more in detail because they have done research on it. But I have heard of what had happened in the past, yes.
Well, all right, Roberto, are there any comments or anything that you would like to add for the community of Gainesville?
Sure, I want to thank the Samuel Proctor History Program for always staying present in this stuff. I worked for 2 or 3 years with them while I was doing my PhD in anthropology. I'm almost finished. I'll finish in May. I should graduate. I'm defending in March. But I want to thank everyone for coming here and being here, for supporting these type of activities, which are really important for the good of the community of Gainesville. Thank you so much for interviewing me, and have a great day.
Thank you, Roberto.
Okay, take care.
All right, my name is Adolfho Romero, and I'm here today with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. Today is February 20, 2021, and I'm here today with
Bernard Perry.
And your name, sir?
Charlie Jackson.
Mr. Jackson? All right, Charlie Jackson. I think we have that. All right, fantastic. Well, let me ask you, what drew you to the ceremony today?
Well, a couple of things. I would say that having some knowledge of the history occurring relating to the lynching, not only in Alachua County, but the state of Florida and across the southern states. And it will give us, I think, an opportunity to continue educating the public on what happened back during that time period that I think will help to connect the dots as it relates to what's happening in today's world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. How about you, sir?
And for me, I'm here primarily as a program participant. I was asked to be a part of the program, but beyond that, I have a huge respect for the people who have recognized the atrocities imposed on black men, in particular, the hangings. I can't think of a more horrendous act that anybody can impose on anybody else, and it's appreciable that they are recognizing and uplifting the stories of those people who were hung and extending a recognition of them.
Let me ask you this. Have you heard any people talk about the lynchings before this? Like, do you hear the community talk about it, or is it like a dark chapter within the community?
I think that you have to be careful when you start looking out for information and research. Sometimes the information is so close to you that you can't see it. For an example, I understand history. I read a lot about history, and I know a lot as it relates to the dark side of America. I'm learning more about what happened in the South, in particular here at home, as it relates to the Newberry Six and other lynching that occurred within the county. I think it's about justice at the end of the day. If we have rules, we have laws to comply by, and for some people the rules may change, and the laws may be affected by individuals. So I think back during those times that the lynching and the hanging and the shooting, but it was more than just lynching. It was people that were just shot as a result of, going to the polls, trying to vote, trying to grow farmland. So there's a lot of things that occurred back during that time frame that affected the people in general, blacks and white. You got to understand the history, and you start looking at the southern states and what happened in the South during that time period of slavery.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. How about yourself?
And I'm going to use a phrase that Charlie said a second ago, and that is the dark side. And there has been a huge dark side to our country for a long time now. And as you may know, we still experience lynchings around the country from time to time. So it's not like something that happened 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, 100 years. It's still happening in today's age. And so I am
humbled by that information and that knowledge. I am burdened by it, but I also find hope by the actions of others who are shedding a light on those actions.
That was going to be my next question. Like, do you think this event brings awareness to the community about the lynchings, and are we able to reconciliate at a personal level, or is this just the beginning, or how far are we into that, securing those equality rights between groups?
Well, I'm always hopeful that we are moving in the right direction, but there will always be acts of people who commit atrocities towards one another. So yes, I'm hopeful, but it appears as if we're always in a beginning stage. So no matter how much progress we think we make about fair justice, equitableness, and whatnot, we always tend to take some steps back, but hopefully always to continue moving forward.
All right. A question, another one. How would you explain the event that's going on today to other people? If they had to listen to the event, what's one thing that you would say about the event, and how would you describe it to them?
I think it's a great opportunity to educate the general public about this time in history that these incidents occurred, but I don't think that it's just one point in history or one reference or one baseline you can say this is all ending, because it will never end. I think what we're dealing with is a transformation in ideological values and how people think in the country. And by doing these types of events, we will recognize a time in history that we can consider a dark side, but we got to learn from what we experienced during that dark time in life and why. The lynching and the shooting and the hanging are pretty much what I consider to be the results. We got to look at the cause. What caused these things to happen in history? It was about power, it was about political power, it was about education, and it was about economics. And if you track history, you can begin to connect the dots from the early 1900s when we began, going our first time deploying troops overseas was during World War I, right? And that was during a segregated time period. And if you take from World War I and keep moving forward, you'll see a lot of things happen in the South that changed the country. So those soldiers who returned from World War I returned to the United States, and if you look at the history, that's where it really began. And it moved on through, the Jim Crow days and all of that. But why did we have Jim Crow in a free country? It was all about wealth. It was all about power. It was all about transitioning from the Civil War moving forward. So a lot of what we see here today is, I believe, is change in heart. I think it's a change in heart on both sides, and we get a great understanding we can come together, but we got to be able to address these dark sides in America that led us to where we are today.
Beautiful, beautiful words. Comes from the heart. It stems from the heart and the origins of it to create change at a in-depth and interpersonal level. Beautiful words. Comments? Okay, just to wrap up things a little bit, are there any last comments that you would like to leave to the community, talk to the community, hope that they could grab from this event and grasp the concept of what's going on today? What are those words that you would say to them?
Well, what I would offer to the community is, if they have an opportunity to support the organization that is helping to put on this event, that's been doing all of the work, that's been doing the history of the lynchings around Alachua County, if they have an opportunity to join in and uplift their message and spread it throughout the community, I would encourage them to do that.
Fantastic. And for yourself?
Well, in the closing comment, first of all, I'd just like to thank you all for giving us an opportunity to at least speak to you all this morning, because this is a historical time in history whereby I think that we will give the community an opportunity to be a part of what a great time in history and educating our American people and our children. It's more about educating the students in schools, and by doing that, I think that we can bring this country back together, but it's going to be some complicated time, and this is a great challenge because you're actually asking people to change their ideological values and their way of thinking and viewing life. You know, to go from the early 1900s to where we are now in 2020 is, and I speak for myself, I'm not speaking for an organization, I'm speaking for me, is that as a individual who have gone and fought in combat in foreign countries for freedom, democracy, and justice, that we got to do it here in America. We got to bring back true America. We got to listen to say America is back.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Well, that concludes the interview for today.
Okay.
All right, my name is Adolfho Romero. Today is February 20, 2021, and I'm here today with Miss
Lizzie Jenkins.
Oh, Miss Lizzie Jenkins. All right, Miss Jenkins?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. What drew you today to the ceremony today?
I'm a historian. I love history, and I have been researching for the last 29 years, researching family history, and I have a foundation researching that history. Okay?
Could you tell me a little bit about what you found in this historical compilation that you've compiled for many, many years?
Yes. What is so similar? Lynching is similar to who I am. I grew up in the Jim Crow days. Lynching was a password. Jim Crow, I thought also I knew so much about it because I lived Jim Crow through my parents in the 40s. Okay, so Jim Crow, lynching, insurrection, all of it worked together, hand in hand. So it's part of me. Because of my great-grandmother who walked from Jackson, Mississippi in 1839, enslaved, age 13, I became interested in history. That's why I'm a historian. Because of her, however, I am. It's a sad story, but it had not been for my great-grandmother who was brave enough to walk, survive, and share her history with her children. And my mom shared it with me, there would not be a Lizzie Jenkins.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of those experiences, personal experiences that it means to you, the ceremony today, and maybe just kind of draw it back to society, like what you hope to get out of that, like those experiences today that were here commemorating this event?
Basically, I'm looking for healing. I want us to heal, to come together as a team, social justice, and work together to make America better. And I believe activities or events of such can make America a better America. Because of all of the hate that goes on, that's not who we are. I'm tired of it, I'm fed up with it, and I work day and night on social justice. I feel it, I'm very passionate about it. It's who I am.
You know, I would like to hear some, if it's okay with you, of course, some personal stories from your history, from your family, like what they've gone through. Just, you know, you're able to recapture as a historian the history of your family. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. At the history program, what we try to do is capture the families, the narratives of the individuals that understand the event, what this means, what this signifies today. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, my family history is on a national level now. My aunt was a Rosewood school teacher in 1915 to 1923. She survived that history and told her mother, told my mother, her sister, the Rosewood story. And my mom said, you must keep that story alive. You must keep that history alive. And I have been working 29 years researching, authenticating, and keeping that Rosewood history alive. And my mom said, hey, Rosewood, there were many Rosewoods with different names. Okay, so all of us, and when I say all of us, the majority of us black folks have lived Rosewood with a different name. That's our history. That's who we are. And we have to continue to work, bring people together, and build relationships. Our kids need to know, the next generation need to know how we got from point A to point B and the suffrage we did many years ago. So Rosewood is my family's history. And I know this is not about Rosewood, but it's about justice, okay?
Exactly.
Truth and reconciliation.
Do you feel like this event it's like we're saying, it's part of the healing process?
Yes, it is.
What's the next steps after this? What do we do next after this?
For my family, we're going to resurrect. They burned the town of Rosewood down. We're going to resurrect the town on property that we own. Okay. And we're going to build a museum. We will keep the history alive. And we will continue our social justice connection.
The power of oral history, everyone. It's a culmination of years of experiences, of narratives, of people, and we need to keep them alive for this event to keep on going forward. Just to conclude this, I don't want to take too much of your time, but what do you expect at the end this will create? Like, what are your expectations for the ending? Or this is the beginning of a long process of healing?
What will it create, you asking me?
Or expectations for the future? Like, what do we have to do as a country, as a nation, multicultural nation, together unite as a group? How do we do that? How can we achieve that?
I think if we work together and if we're on the same page and we seek help from each other, respect each other, and just work for healing. The people who are now helping us understand, but for many years people didn't understand our suffering. This is what we have done all of our lives. This hatred, disrespect is our livelihood. I grew up, it's nothing new to me. I grew up. This is common. It's no surprise. I grew up. I remember back when I was a little girl, we had to step off the sidewalk and allow white folks, okay, the passageway. We were not allowed. Oh my God, I remember so much. We have made progress, but it's still a lot of progress we need to make.
Do you think that we went backwards in progress within our past presidency and now we're moving forward? Or
of course we went back.
Thank you.
But the hate was still there. He was the president that brought it forward and ignited it. Okay, but it was still there. It's always been there. And we know it. We feel it, like I said, it's an everyday thing. Okay, we smile about it, but it's our livelihood. We know that.
Actions count louder than words, that's for sure. And his actions were definitely counting in a way, in a negative impact for the communities. But, well, I would like to leave you with one last comment or question. Is there anything that you would like to say, maybe to the next generations that are listening to this audio? Let's say in 100 years, you know, as a historian, you understand, if you can remember the past, you are condemned to relive it.
Yes.
And it's, what advice will you give to the next generation?
As you said, if you don't remember the past, you will forget it. I would like to say to the next generation, read, R-E-A-D. We don't read anymore. Everybody's on cell phone. You've got to go back and start reading. When I was growing up, there was no cell phone, no television, nothing. I learned to read from the Bible. It was one of the books we had in our house. And that's how I learned to read before I went to school. The Bible. Kids need to read, prepare yourself. You need to know what happened. How your parents got from point A to point B, because you have, your parents have afforded you a lot of things, the things that you really don't need. You need to know how they worked, they sacrificed to get you what they were not able I went to college because my mom was not allowed, my dad was not allowed in college. They both had 8th grade education. And they said to me, you are going to college because I was not able to go to college, and I want you to do more than I was able to do. Yes. And that was like the platform for black people. Everybody wanted their kids to do better and be better. And we still are doing the same thing. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, thank you very much. And that concludes our presentation or interview for today.
Okay.